Welcome to this edition of the Mindshift Cards Conversations, a part of our learning journey here at the Human School. Tonight, we're going to focus on a question that we've actually revised from our Mindshift cards, and it comes from the Inventor Compass Point. And the question tonight is, in thinking through a human-centered lens, what might a successful learner, teacher, and or leader look like in the system? So I'm going to turn it over to either Rachel or Randy to pick one of those roles and talk through it a little bit.
There'll be a moment of silence here to figure out who's going to speak next.
I'll go.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Here to serve. So what does success look like for a student? I mean, in some ways, dare I say, I don't think that success should be different between the three categories. I know that's kind of a cop-out, and I understand that context matters. However, I would say things like being curious, being a learner, asking questions, sharing insights, not being afraid to exert your agency. And I don't know that I would believe that that's any less true for a teacher or a leader. Is that a cop-out?
Well, because one way to frame that is, are we all students or learners, teachers, and leaders?
What I'm saying.
So it's part of that paradigm, that idea that those are somehow like defined by age. Right.
Yeah.
Does it help then to reframe the question around what those shifts might be for people? So like when I think about the teacher role, I think the major shift in a human-centered environment is a more shift to being able to dance with learners and being a follower, sometimes following and sometimes leading, and knowing when to back off and allow students to lead a lot more than kind of traditionally now. So like, I think one significant shift in a human-centered environment is really around when teachers, I'm going to use the word exert their expertise, is more driven by student inquiry than the current model, which is really like pretty much all the time.
And my first push would be, I would love an environment where those two roles ebb and flow of who occupies them. I know that that's really, really difficult in the current paradigm. But I think having the person who is the learner in the situation be able to sit back, object, ask questions, be curious, while whoever is teaching is facilitating, shifting, moving, supporting, but then also exchanging roles in those spaces as well, either intentionally or unintentionally. And again, going back to your image of dancing, who's going to lead, who's going to follow, theoretically doesn't have to be the same person the whole time.
And I would say from the leader lens, and again, it doesn't matter whether you're 10, 12, or 72, I think all these things apply. And that is that, the traditional way of framing leadership is by hierarchy. And I think that we still see too much of that in schools where people who are in positions of power or positions of title operate within the hierarchy. So if I'm a principal, there are people below me and there are people above me, and I tend to follow the directives of the people above me and then give those directives to the people below me. And yes, there are times when we need that hierarchy, when there's a critical issue that needs to be addressed immediately. Sometimes it requires a small group of people getting together, brainstorming and saying, okay, here's the solution we're going to carry out, and we're going to address that problem because it's timely. There are times in schools when that needs to happen, but then there's this, some people call it polyarchy, some people call it networks, where the leadership can emerge from anywhere. And I think that we need leaders in positions of title who realize that they know when to sort of give up the leadership role, the power, and cede that to other people, so that those ideas that those people bring, those experiences that they bring, those gifts that we oftentimes talk about, can be elevated and can be part of whatever that new direction or that new idea that helps move the organization forward, how that emerges. So I think moving from the hierarchy to the ability to release some of that power.
I think one of the shifts that I'm thinking about as you share that, Randy, is a shift from being reactive to being proactive. And I think that kind of aligns to our being future oriented, in that many decisions feel like they have to be made immediately, and in isolation, they feel like there is a fire that has to be put out. And not having a process, an intentionally designed committee or group of people, and I use the word committee like loosely, like I don't mean not a formal committee, but you talked about a group of people who would brainstorm together. I wonder how many things that happen in a school or in a district are that emergency driven, that a decision has to be made in isolation. And I think that a lot of that is done either through a lack of design or through a lack of proactivity, right? So like, again, clearly there could actually be a fire in a building in which it would require one person to make decisions but very little of that, I think, is what actually happens. And so I think, to your point, one of the shifts is moving from this reactive way of thinking to a more proactive approach to how can we design together? How can we solve problems together? How can we be more forward facing so that when a challenge arises, those who feel compelled to lead can do so without fear of retribution or fear that they're making a decision outside of the alignment of the group.
Yeah, great observation.
Yeah. Great.
We solved that problem already? We're good?
All right.
Right?
Yeah. I was just thinking of tying it all back to sort of the inventor compass point too, that, the work that we do in schools around designing solutions, creating solutions, inventing solutions to things that we identify, whether it be a technical problem that needs a quick answer, or something that's more long-term, that we need to involve lots of different voices, and not just the voices based on the role of student, teacher, or leader. That goes back to power, goes back to agency, and really sort of reshaping those ideas within our minds and within our beliefs and values and thoughts.
I have a saying that I say a lot, and this conversation is causing me to reconsider whether or not it's a valid thing to say anymore. So when I served in a district office role, one of the things I used to say to teachers is, look, by the time a decision or a challenge comes to me from where I sit in the organization, hierarchically speaking, the easy decisions have been made. When a decision is not immensely impactful or problematic, it can be made at the classroom level or the building level. But by the time it kicks its way all the way up, it seems like you're making a decision between bad and worse. Like there's no great solution. You're looking for somebody. And as I think about that statement through a human-centered lens, I don't know that I believe that that's actually accurate. I think that because I wonder if the person if I, as the person making that decision at that level, has all of the information, it seems like that you would be further disconnected from the need to make that decision as a kind of a counterpoint to that. So I don't know. It made me pause and think, I'm wondering if that's really true. Is that a false paradigm? I don't have a solution to it. It made me pause.
We don't do solutions here.
Fair.
Okay.
Very good. All right. Well, I would say this has been a great conversation. And, as we work through these compass points and the Mindshift cards, they are available on the website for you to purchase and engage in conversations with your colleagues, or even for your own self-reflection. And we use them as a tool to help us to consider what it might be like to exist or design a more human-centered environment, which is a big part of our core mission here. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining in the Mindshift Cards conversation this evening, part of our learning journey here at the Community School. Thanks, guys.